Most writing advice answers the wrong question correctly. It is often a list of symptoms pretending to be a cure. To show you what I mean, let me walk you through a question I've been asked before. How to write an ensemble. If I'm asked how to do it, I can easily give an inefficient answer like this. An ensemble story is a story with multiple main characters where everyone gets their own moments. I'd talk about balancing screen time and making sure everyone has an arc because fairness feels like the problem to solve. Maybe I'd say something about chemistry mattering a lot. That a cast needs to feel like they belong together. That each character should be likable or interesting in their own way. Then I'd probably do something like name dropping things like Friends, The Avengers, or Game of Thrones and I give you shallow answers that feel right and are pretty useless when it comes to actual execution. I'd be treating it all as a distribution problem instead of a system problem, as so many do. Here is the big issue with so much writing advice. It's descriptive instead of generative. Most writing advice reverse engineers finished work and presents observations as instruction. Give characters flaws, raise the stakes, write snappy dialogue, develop chemistry. These aren't things you do, they're things that happen when you do something else correctly. Interesting is an emergent property. Stakes are downstream of pressure. Snap is a symptom of agency contrast. Chemistry is dependent on friction. Basically, these describe qualities of good writing after the fact. They don't tell you how to construct those qualities from raw materials. They're like telling someone a meal should taste savory with hints of umami instead of giving them ingredients, sequences, and temperatures. And this is why most advice fails in practice. Most craft instruction points at outcomes and says, produce this, without explaining what upstream choices cause those outcomes to emerge. It's like teaching someone to be funny by saying, be funny. Thanks. Really helped me out there. Let's call this effect instruction. Teaching outcome as if naming them produces them. And yes, there was a time when I was guilty of this too. It's actually why I often held back at times answering some questions as I kept growing, as I knew there was more to it, but I hadn't yet figured out how to best express the answers. I do know now how, but before I tell you how, there's something else that must be addressed in this, since advice seekers make a major mistake too, which feeds effect instruction. It's a little something I call symptom targeting. Symptom targeting is when someone asks questions that frame the symptom as the intervention point. But here's the thing, you can't intervene on symptoms. They're outputs, not inputs. Asking, how do I make a good ensemble? It's like asking, how do I make my car faster when you're out of gas? The question presupposes the solution lives on the same level as the problem. When these two missteps meet, they create a feedback loop that goes like this. 1. Writer experiences a failure. 2. They perceive the symptom. 3. They ask a question framed at the symptom level. 4. The advice giver responds with an effect level description. 5. The writer applies surface changes. 6. The underlying structure remains broken. 7. Failure persists. 8. Writer assumes they lack talent or execution. And 9. The loop repeats. And the sad thing is, none of this is malicious or a case of people being stupid. It's all just incentives at play. First, with effect instruction, it satisfies conversational incentives. It sounds smart, avoids pushback, doesn't make anyone defensive, fits great into tweets and panels and workshops, and best of all, it can't easily be proven wrong. It's socially safe. Second, it preserves the asker's identity. A causal answer implies that someone built the wrong thing, which threatens most people. Effect instruction implies that they're basically right. You just need to polish this or that. Most people prefer reassurance over reconstruction. This is why effect instruction gets rewarded with gratitude, agreement, and perceived expertise, even if it doesn't work. Third, it flatters pattern recognition. It aligns quite well with how people consume art. Audiences notice things like chemistry, tension, stakes, pacing, and emotion. So advice that mirrors those perceptions feel intuitively correct. What these people don't realize is that perception is downstream of structure. Effect instruction exploits that confusion that exists between recognizing effects with understanding causes. And fourth, it is hard to falsify. For instance, if someone says, "You need better chemistry," and the work fails, there's always an escape hatch built in. You didn't do it enough. It's subjective. Different audiences. Execution issue. It's vagueness instead of testable claims. Basically, it's difficult to break this because it requires violating two social norms. For advice givers, it requires people reframing the question instead of answering it and telling someone, basically, that they're focusing on the wrong thing. And for advice seekers, it means 1. Accepting that the visible problem is not the real problem, and 2. That there is always the possibility that earlier decisions were wrong. Most don't want to do this because it makes them feel uncomfortable, and thus the loop persists. Now, at this point, you might be wondering, how do you solve this problem? The answer lies in what I call causal craft. Causal craft is the art of identifying the structural causes that generate desired effects, then teaching writers to build those causes directly. In other words, the issue is that so many focus on teaching people how to recognize good writing, not how to construct conditions from which good writing emerges. To show you what I mean, let's work with how I've actually answered the question on ensembles, link in the description to the full entry. To do it justice, I can't just give some quick answer that can go in a comment section. Instead, I had to create an entire system. It involves the creator addressing each of these questions in order: pressure field, shared question, vectors of agency, dependency loop, scarcity and escalation, gravity and consequences. For me to have even figured that out, I had to dissect what an ensemble is, to go beyond the surface of the what and focus on the essence of what it is. I couldn't just say that it's multiple main characters. That's shallow. All that leads to is people accidentally inventing a bunch of unrelated solo stories stapled together, a one protagonist story where everyone else is just furniture. No, I had to first understand what a story is, transformation under pressure, and then recognize that an ensemble is the same engine with the load distributed across multiple human beings. Then, from that, I recognize things like, instead of focusing on many characters, I need to think of things like shared pressure field, which unifies everything. To understand what I mean by that, ensemble stories work when all major characters are inside the same force field, same constraints, threats, deadlines, institutions, missions, relationships, environments. If they can walk away into their own plot, it's not an ensemble. It's a short story collection. So, for instance, The Wire's pressure field is the city's system. Game of Thrones' pressure field is the throne/power ecology. Leverage's pressure field is the current job. Communities is the group and their dependency on each other. Once I've identified things, I build scaffolding to help people navigate each of the atoms, to make decisions through the options. It's the next important step in creating actionable advice, since causal advice without scaffolding leads to problems. But before you can understand those problems, let me explain what scaffolding is. I picked up the idea from Adam Grant's Hidden Potential. Basically, it is a temporary system that redistributes cognitive load, risk, emotion, and judgment away from the learner until the learner can bear those things internally. It's called scaffolding because it works like literal scaffolding. When building a skyscraper, you don't expect the steel to stand on its own while it's half finished. You surround it with support, knowing the support will eventually be removed. This is the same thing, just applied to learning. Failure to consider scaffolding is another major issue with modern advice that I'm guilty of in the past. You see, unscaffolded advice prescribes behavior while omitting the support structures that make those behaviors survivable. For instance, those who pull the just do it thing type of advice assumes the learner can already hold the whole problem in their head. This is what leads to terrible advice like write every day, ship consistently, build in public, or, my favorite, just start. What's missing is any attempt to regulate cognitive simultaneity. Since, after all, writing, and many other things, aren't just one task. With regards to writing, it's idea generation, structure, voice, judgment, execution, and taste calibration. And scaffolded advice piles all that onto the learner at once and then acts surprised when they freeze. So, for those of you who have been impacted by this, you aren't failing from laziness. You're just hit by overlapping demands. As a whole, advice that omits load regulation accidentally selects for people who already had it elsewhere, typically from education, mentorship, or, in my case, temperament. It makes people think they're broken. That there is just one of the reasons advice culture drops the ball to note. If you'd like to hear more ways how modern advice optimizes for signaling instead of learning, tell me in the comments. The more people who speak up and show interest in this, the quicker I'll share. Anyway, I realize that this is a huge problem, which is why I design stuff as I do, to create a better learning environment. And from those designs can the principles and rules we use in execution be built downstream. For instance, from this design on ensembles, I was able to determine that POV is a strategic information weapon, not a fairness mechanism. And from that statement, I can build actionable statements for better execution. Now, I could say that statement by itself, and I'm going to share stuff like that as quick quotes to build visibility, but the statements by themselves aren't helpful for production. So, as you can see, offering true help is demanding work on both the advice giver and receiver. Causal Craft requires understanding that great art is downstream from great cognition. Great cognition, meanwhile, can't be achieved without emotional maturity, which is why effect instruction and symptom targeting run rampant in creative spaces. It's easier to recognize good creation than it is to construct the conditions that produce it. Causal Craft is the difference between describing fire and knowing how to start one. Now, if you've reached this far into the video, I'm assuming you do wish to start a metaphorical fire still, which is why I have two things for you. First, as said in the description, I will link to my Substack, where I released an article providing my full ensemble creation system as well as a diagnostic test. Most of my storytelling craft work lives there now. With this channel, I'm going to focus more and more on psychology and entrepreneurship, which is why, in my next video, I want to go much deeper into the statement that great art is downstream great cognition. If exploring that is something you're interested in, subscribe so that you know when that video drops.